It was like a whole new character, because as much as we'd sort of talked about Beth and seen her briefly in like flashback videos and like on the platform, the train platform, we didn't really know much about her except like speculation, what Alison said or what Art said or what Sarah discovered in her investigation, being Beth, you know, in season 1. But she was a fully new character for me to develop, really. And I was so excited to go back to her.
With Beth, it was really great working with Tat and Graeme to essentially invent this character using the mythology that we created, but creating a character that still had a lot of elements to her that you don't know.
Tatiana does feel different. I mean, the character does feel different than the Sarah playing Beth character did. Because when we were doing those scenes originally in season 1, part of you know, the nature of what was happening a lot was Art with a furrowed brow trying to figure out what's wrong with my partner. There's something wrong here and I can't quite figure out what it is because she's sitting right in front of me, and who the heck in their wildest dreams would imagine that it's someone else assuming an identity. Now we don't have that. It was interesting to not have that obstacle, but to have other obstacles to tackle. From an acting point of view, working with the real Beth is, you know, purely technically it was refreshing, you know, because I could really get to the heart of what that relationship was all about. And we can sort of flesh out why Art is in it as deep as he is. And just to play opposite of Tatiana in that role has been fantastic.
Back in the spring of 2015, we went ahead with a new comic book series. It was going to be 5 issues. I wanted to come up with something that didn't necessarily interfere with the season. So I talked to Graeme and I said, why don't we do a comic book series around Helsinki, which was set in the past, with characters that we've never met before, so that it doesn't necessarily impact what we're doing with season 4. Ultimately, it's a kind of a tragic story because it's set around the Helsinki clonocide, I guess. And so I came up with the idea of creating a character named Vera. She's burned in the Leda explosion. That character was so interesting that Graeme, when I talked to him about the comic book series and how we wanted to begin that, he liked her enough that we decided to put her into season 4.
She was a shocker. I was reading one of the comics this summer, one of the clone comics, and what the hell is this on the cover?
Yeah.
I thought, well, I think we better talk about that soon. This is coming up about 2 days later. Well, we're introducing a new character. I thought, well, good. Good, because I see she's already been created. We better get busy.
Please, no, I'm sorry, I came in the back. It's me. Jesus, Mika. It was locked, but the sliding doors are not so hard to open if you're familiar.
I've always been fascinated with Bjork, and there was something about the way MK was that just felt like a little kind of, like her brain works on a different level. And I think Bjork really does operate on a fully different plane than most people of creativity and of just like mental activity. She's so cool. Not that the Finnish dialect and Icelandic are the same by any means, but there are similarities, and so it just sort of felt natural to kind of pull from her for inspiration.
The innocence in her face, that bang, that's an awkward length.
This is something that someone would take the scissors and just cut it right across, so it's not so perfect. The bangs could be even shorter than normally you would.
And then, of course, we have to hide half of her face, have to hide it. So I was to understand that we would only see this scar one time. There would be the big reveal where she would sort of really put it in someone's face. And that worked really well. And the way you had the wig covering the face, they wanted to make sure Tatiana was comfortable with not revealing it, but always having something to hide behind. In the shadows, she always wants to wear the scar. Even though the hair hides it perfectly, we tried it without, and she said, I think I really need that physicality of it. And so I put it on every time. We never see it, paint it by hand and seal it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's worth the time, and it helps her, I think, forget about the hair. It becomes second nature to her, and she hides it.
The hair is positioned, the way it's cut, it actually stays there, but doesn't cover her face, just gives her that little shadow, that little hiding behind it.
Poor awkward
Yeah.
character. She's so great. I love that character.
We think that MK has had that mask since she was a little girl. It's been something that she's had for a while. You can actually see it tied into the comic books in the 5th comic book for her backstory. If you look really closely at it, it's got like really worn edges and cracks, and it's supposed to sort of be like a kid's mask from the 80s.
Sure, and you are more than welcome to... Calm down, Miss Wiggum.
We put our heads together early in the process with John and I and the writers to say what can we do that's different? How do we give Ari a character that's the polar opposite of his military training boys? And so we ended up with a character who I think whose upbringing is probably a lot more like Rachel's.
Ira's look versus Castor, night and day. Night and day.
Night and day.
It's, yeah, raised on other sides of the globe, other sides of philosophy. I don't know, they couldn't be more different.
He's very still, isn't he? He's very refined.
I mean, like, originally, the character was written as blonde. Like, I think they really wanted to show a real difference between Castor and Ira. They wanted to make a clear definition change between the two. But, somewhere along the lines, they cut the blonde hair. I mean, they were even talking like Botox and things like that. Not necessarily doing it for me, but giving the appearance, which I think to a certain extent we have done. He's certainly very dollish.
Pretty well.
Pretty well, yeah.
Looks like he's been made of plastic just a little bit.
Mannequin.
Kind of impossibly perfect, of questionable sexuality maybe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We looked at Cary Grant and we looked at Cybers, and he is tweezed and groomed and plucked and powdered and polished and...
Not a hair.
It's a choice that Ira makes about his appearance, but I mean, I'd like to think that it's heavily influenced by Susan. Going back to that doll scenario, he's almost like her plaything, and it's almost like, her Ken doll. That's kind of how I've been approaching it, in a weird way.
We really liked the reveal. We liked to reveal that they had an intimate relationship as a surprise ending to an episode. But also, we wanted to challenge people with an age gap in a relationship. We're challenging people with a lot of different kinds of relationships on the show. So it's not one you see very often, an older woman and a much younger man. It's Harold and Maude.
Plus, it's just asking a lot of questions of creator, creation. Like, there's like a little bit of a Frankenstein kind of story within that as well that we kind of talked about, and that's a fun, complex bit of psychology to dig into also.
And the ethics behind it. If people are finding it taboo, that's great.
Yeah.
To think about the ethics and the ethics of that situation between a sexual relationship between a creator and the created.
I mean, she's essentially his mother. Susan is Ira's mother, but also not his mother. And it's kind of, it's a twisted relationship that she fulfills both roles for him.
I mean, it's an interesting thing, mother-son. Is it mother-son? I mean, I was thinking about this. We don't see this, we don't know this, but you got two people who are isolated, a man and a woman. He is this extraordinary creature. I mean, he's extraordinary. And he, as he came into his adulthood, of course, would be interested in sexuality. And I think Susan, too, at some point also, initially, it might just have been curiosity, like not just personal, but scientific curiosity. And then they're two lonely people.
They're both each other's companions, family, colleagues. It's a very complicated relationship.
Susan's kind of forced into a situation where she kind of has to decide whether to work with the female clones or to try and cure the male clones. She really, you can't do both. And she's obviously very affectionate towards Ira, but she has to choose. She has to choose the Leda sisters And that puts Ira in a very sort of precarious mental state.
I think Ira is really having a crash course on his expiry date.
She has to choose between her siblings. Siblings? No. Choose between her kids?
Between her creations.
Creations. Nice.
Her daughter or her son.
Or son lover.
Slover.
Slightly ancestral, that little. It's a little icky, but
Not really.
it's icky in a good way. It's only slightly creepy.
They're not related.
She's only raised him as a son, though.
Yeah.
Kinda. Son / butler / cabin boy,
It's handy.
cabana boy.
Yeah.